Good afternoon, Prague. I'm Maxmilian Obvexer, co-founder and CEO of 21 Energy. And over the next 20 minutes, I will show you how Europe's wasted green electricity can be turned into two valuable products. Of course, Bitcoin and on the same time, heat. While stabilizing the grid and putting real euros on your balance sheet so we can move faster, scale, and we are already live with a lot of that. But first, let's talk about the problem. Last year, only in the European Union, 35 terawatt hours of energy from renewable energies were curtailed. That's enough electricity to run 4 million homes for a complete year. And all of that because our electrical wires were already full and the consumers had to step in and pay for the mess. Enter the digital battery. A Bitcoin miner isn't just a computer, it's also an ultra-flexible electrical load where you can ramp up a megawatt array in seconds, but also can ramp it down within seconds. And it's all just cables, firmware, and a market-ready switch. And there is another bonus, because every joule which enters these Bitcoin mining chips gets converted with 100% efficiency into heat, which you can wire into radiators or greenhouses or fish farms. And at the same time, you have billions of calculations per second, which you get paid for. So every kilowatt hour of electricity does double duty. It does two things at the same time. And on top, you can balance the grid with this electricity. So, here's the game plan. First, we will talk about solar parks, then we will move to hydro, and then to onshore wind, and look how Bitcoin mining can help all those technologies. After that, we will look what would happen if we would have hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin heaters connected together to a national fleet, and then we walk through to two concrete projects and end with Bitcoin mining containers. So, let's start with solar. A 10 megawatt PV park still needs roughly 8 to 9 years with today's prices to pay itself back. What if we could slice that in half? Without any subsidies, without any additional panels, but only by adding a flexible load right next to the inverter. But also beyond the return on investment, we hit two more pain points. The grid operator's balancing headache disappears because Bitcoin miner can soak up the surplus within seconds, and CO2 life cycle also falls because fewer peaker plants have to spin up on short notice. So one intervention, but 3 wins: money, stability, and also climate. Curtailment costs already the system billions. Only in Germany, and only last year, we paid 900 million for solar owners and wind parks, which didn't run. So that's a check and a sorry for infrastructure we haven't even built yet. And flexible demand can fix that much, much cheaper. Negative prices are no longer theory. In Europe alone, the last year, we had over 2,300 hours with negative electricity prices. That's the glow, the red glow you can see here on the map. And whenever the market pays consumers to take electricity, Bitcoin miners could jump in, soak up the surplus, and everyone's electricity bill would be lower. Let's compare some technologies which could help with that. On the left, we see pumped hydro, which is excellent, but it's very expensive, and of course, you need mountains for that. In the middle, you can see, on the right, you can see the Bitcoin mining containers, which are very capex light and respond really, really fast. And in the middle, we have brilliant electrolyzers. They are improving, but they are still very, very slow to modulate. So with Bitcoin mining containers, we could scale much, much faster and much, much cheaper. One physics nugget again, the ASIC miner is a perfect resistive heater. They convert every single watt to computational work and into heat at the same time. And that means that nothing is wasted and the electricity we would otherwise spill is now serving two economic incentives. I know we are here on a Bitcoin conference, but a super quick word about Bitcoin itself. That's not speculating or day trading on Bitcoin. It's just using Bitcoin as a global liquidity layer, censorship, and settlement layer. And we turn every stray electron into hard digital assets, exactly that hard assets investors love and already understand, and of course here, especially on a Bitcoin conference like this. But also, the policymakers are catching up. The United Nations Climate Secretariat lists demand-side flexibility as a key component for integrating more renewables into our grids. And Bitcoin miners exactly offer that. Demand, which is dispatchable in seconds, built in months, and paid by private and not taxpayer subsidies. First, let's cover solar. Picture a megawatt array in Europe. At noon, wholesale power can crash far below zero, and instead of throttling the panels, we just route the surplus energy right into a Bitcoin mining container. And suddenly, every unwanted electron brings revenue and is not a liability for the grid. We have all seen the duck curve. Solar floods the grid at lunchtime, but the demand peaks in the evening. Adding flexible loads helps us with flattening the belly of the duck. And we don't have to overbuild batteries we just can't yet afford, but they are getting better and better. So, the current build costs for a solar park is approximately 750,000 euros per megawatt in average in Europe. And the payback is approximately 9 years. But developers need much better economics to keep expanding without any subsidies or higher tariffs. Curtailment today is 1 or 2%, but it's accelerating really, really fast. And only March 2025, we had more PV cutoffs than all over the complete year 2018. So we are on the edge on a really, really steep waste curve. A Bitcoin mining container does two jobs at once. During sunny oversupply hours, it monetizes the surplus energy, and during frequency increases in the grid, we could bid negative reserves, essentially being paid to consume power on command. A dual revenue cut amortization from 9 roughly to 4 years with the Bitcoin mining container at the PV park. Picture these revenues as a three-layered cake. We have the solid base layer, which you get for the wholesales of your electricity, a middle layer for the balancing, and the cherry on top is, of course, the Bitcoin mining gains. Because each layer behaves independently, your cash flow stays smooth. Banks reward that kind of diversification and with cheaper financing for your next project. This results in far more bankable solar, and you see free cash flow much sooner than without Bitcoin mining. Importantly, these extra revenues remain additive through every cycle, bull, bear, or sideways, because the flexibility is very valuable, and the Bitcoin mining is only on top. So whatever Bitcoin will be worth in 2030, and of course we are very bullish on that, the flexibility itself is always very valuable on top. So let's wrap up the solar part. No photon is left behind if you have a Bitcoin mining container there. You have shorter payback, and now let's move to the river and hydro. I'm losing my headset. So, run over river hydro is Europe's quiet workhorse. Roughly 4,500 megawatt hours per megawatt annually. Most plants are already decades old, are fully amortized, but the owners still spill water over to go negative. No, sorry. Still water when prices go negative during daytimes. So spill today is only 1 or 2%, yet studies show it could climb as solar, keep displacing daytime prices. Operators fear that 5% spill could already wipe out their complete margins. Another headache is that their turbines can't qualify for primary reserves because they ramp just up and down way too slowly, and that's also, once again, lost revenue potential. But also, if you bolt there a Bitcoin mining container, downstream you've created a lightning-fast break for demand. That water keeps spinning, and you decide every single second where the electricity should go, into the mining container or in the grid. Primary reserve in Central Europe paid approximately 115,000 euros per megawatt last year. That's approximately 10,000 euros every single month just to being available to cut off the electricity or consume the electricity. Let's do a quick demonstration. If the grid frequency drops below the 50 Hertz, you get a signal that you should drop offline your miners, and the full turbine output hits now the wire within a second. No mechanical stress, no startup lag, and just instant headroom also for this old hydro. What's the outcome? We have 100% of the river's energy monetized and extra balancing income and absolutely no spilled water. So let's wrap also hydro up. We upgraded mature assets into 21st century flexible generators without touching the dam. Onshore wind. In Germany, last year, we had 65 full load hours per megawatt, which got curtailed. That's 4% of potential production thrown away. Operators were compensated, but consumers had to pay for that. Those 65 full load hours cost approximately 900 million euros. Forced braking also hammers gearboxes, bearings, and blades. Continuous smoother operation slashes wear, extending service intervals and the turbine life. Good for the operator and also for the insurers. Clip a miner pod to the collection, a mining container, and even at 2 a.m., every gust gets monetized and is not a liability anymore. With this additional revenue, many wind parks can sunset subsidies much, much earlier, and policymakers could redirect these funds for transmission build-out. Bitcoin miners love volatility because high hash price moments follow low price power, smoothing it across days and seasons. The hydro takeaway: use wind, don't waste wind, and certainly don't break the wind. Now, my favorite topic. Zoom out and imagine 100,000 Bitcoin heaters in 100,000 apartments in every European state. Wall units replacing gas heaters and resistors radiators. And now comes the shameless plug. Brand new today, we launched our 21 Energy Oven 2, a super silent wall-mounted Bitcoin heater with 30% here on the conference. Swing by at our booth after this talk. These 100,000 units equal to 100 megawatts of instantly controllable power. That's like a big gas peaker plant, but distributed and emission-free. During grid stress hours, our system pushes zero-cost electricity to the private end user while cranking the heaters up to absorb the surplus. So customers mine Bitcoin with zero electricity costs, and we avoid blackouts, and everyone's electricity tariffs go down. How can we do that? That's pretty easy. You connect the household with the 21 Energy Cloud, and we can aggregate those thousands of Bitcoin heaters into two national TSOs for aggregated balancing markets. That's like a big industrial load, but we can do it overnight. Because we are the cheapest flexible load, grid-free calculations drop for every consumer, not just our clients. And the flexibility is a public good. So let's do fast 2 case studies from Austria. We had a 2 megawatt PV park on a large company, and they had also 300 kilowatts of district heat export line. If you install now 500 kilowatts of Bitcoin heater, your solar payback would also have if you connect it also with the grid balancing. And the company also ditched wood pellets, which they burned before the district heating. This resulted that they had 50% shorter payback on their solar roof, and they earned additionally 120,000 euros per megawatt for the grid balancing markets. And they avoided a lot of CO2 emissions and also CO2 fees, and still had double-digit IRR. Case study number 2, a stranded logistics warehouse with no tenants, and the tenants fled because the heating bills were insane, because it was very old. Installing Bitcoin heaters had much lower OPEX and reclassified the building as viable and put it back on the market. Rental income exceeded retrofit levels, while energy bills sank during that capital into an appreciating cash flow asset. The equipment capital expenditure paid itself via asset value uplift north of 100x on the hardware investment. So, once again, zoom a little bit back out. Renewable sources search are overloading networks daily already, and we keep still building them out, especially in in spring and autumn. This is our warehouse, where we got just delivered 20 megawatts of Bitcoin miners, spare hardware which is ready to populate Bitcoin mining containers or new heaters as projects green lights. A 1 megawatt standby container in the DACH region earns you 150,000 euros annually only from the balancing of the grid. Before you even count the negative electricity prices, and even before you count the bitcoins you have mined. Even though it runs only 30 minutes a day in average, you get paid 365 days, 24/7, because you get paid just for being available, for being a flexible load. That's the magic of the capacity markets. Think of each container as a hydraulic shock absorber. It compresses when the renewable wave hits the grid, and it relaxes then when the demand rises, smoothing the ride for everyone. So let's do a recap. We've halved the amortization period for solar. Hydro is fully monetized. The wind turbines can keep spinning. Households can earn Bitcoin while they are heating their home, and industry retrofits are cheaper. And grid containers can soak up these peaks. Forecasts only for Europe say that we need approximately 100 gigawatts of new flexible demand by 2030. Bitcoin mining, in my opinion, will supply a hefty slice from that. Privately financed, instantly responsive, and of course, no toxic waste. So, if you want to have numbers for your own project, we can help you with that. Scan that QR code and we will help you to calculate the numbers for your project. Thank you very much for your attention and for your time, and let's stop paying clean waste power. Let's turn surplus into Satoshis and accelerate Europeans' energy transition. Thank you very much.
Secure your BTC Prague 2026 ticket at the lowest possible price now.